Check 1, 2. Return to people.
Today's guest is a true innovator in the world of financial technology. With over 25 years of experience, he's not just navigating the tech seas, he's steering the ship. As the CTO and CPO of Payzli, he's crafting groundbreaking payment solutions that simplify life for business owners everywhere. But that's not all. This culinary adventurer also seeks out spicy delights in the most unexpected places. We're gonna have to ask you something about that. Get ready to dive into how tech can reshape workplace culture and empower remote teams. Please welcome Kapil Pershad.
Hey, Kaleem.
Yes, Kapil. I finally got it, baby. I finally got it.
You got me, man. Yeah. How are you?
I'm all right, man. Thank you so much for joining us. It's finally connected. You're looking good. What's going on?
I'm jet lagged, but thank you.
Yeah. Well, no one could tell, sir. No one could tell. So before we jump into Payzli and what you're doing with the tech, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself personally? I want to hear about that spicy stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself personally and how you landed where you are today?
So the spice is in our DNA. It's in the double helix. That's all I can say. So I definitely, I scope it into my travels when I can. But long story short, about 26 years in tech. Started off in the engineering side. Back in the day. I mean, this is during or right after the first .com boom, C++, and then Windows DNA and C#. Floated around a little while where it was at Bank of America, First Data Corporation, which is now Fiserv, in the payment space. I consulted after I left corporate America. I left as the VP of product development at a boutique software company in San Jose in Silicon Valley. And then I went into private consulting for about 10 years, had a fairly successful consulting career focused on, again, fintech, product development, consulting, process tuning, optimization, etc. Then I ran into my business partners, Naeem Hamdar, who's our chief revenue officer, and Arash Azadpina, who's our chief risk officer. And we felt like we had the tripod that is necessary to stand up a robust fintech organization, a payments company. It's not the easiest thing in the world. There's a lot of compliance and banking regulations, and that's where Raj comes in. Of course, every organization needs a great revenue head, and then I am heading up technology.
That's really interesting. I remember when we first met, I was like, "Oh, you're a people person?" I was like, "Oh, Kaleem, get out of your space. CPO is chief product officer, not chief people officer." But you also help out with that. So when clients or people are turning to Payzli, what are the main challenges that they're facing, and how are you helping them overcome those challenges?
Yeah, well, first thing, whatever we do it happily. So our tagline, for the joy of business. And we try to reach out to our merchant base, to our customers, to our partners with a smile on our face, number one, right? Okay. From a product standpoint, we're a cross between a Square and a Stripe. So we have a very robust online stack, and we're a direct competitor to Stripe. We compete on price, we compete on service, we compete on the product side. On the point of sale side, we're competing with Square appointments, if you will. So within the beauty, health, wellness segment, so think nail salons, hair salons, barbershops, tattoo parlors. We've got a great point of sale business management solution coming out called Payzli Inc., which is a tattoo shop management software. So we offer both card present and card not present online payment processing solutions for small to mid-sized businesses in a nutshell. And like I said, we try to do it with a smile on our face and solve problems where others can't.
Yeah, I feel like you all smile a lot because just our few times we've chatted, I feel like there's an energy, there's a positivity, with your vibe. So I'm sure you all have sore faces from smiling. That's
We
true.
try. We have, everyone's got dilemmas, but look, even if I told you, you wouldn't care. So we choose to smile. Yeah.
Well, that's great, man. That's great. So, what year did you all kind of create the company? What year is that roughly?
Yeah, it was actually in the middle of COVID,
Okay.
2019. But we really got started right after COVID. So you can say 2021, kind of really getting active.
Okay. So, when did you all at Paisley decide to make the decision to embrace, remote or hybrid? And what was really the driving factor for that?
The driving factor was the global pandemic that was going on. And at the time, we decided to launch our startup, which was insane in the first place, but we did.
Yeah, yeah.
We're a bunch of risk takers. But we decided pretty early on that talent had no boundaries. We were kind of forced because of the pandemic, but
Right,
we
right.
decided, what, let's see if we can turn this frown upside down and build the right team in the right way under this environment. And it's worked out for us because of some key maneuvers that we've made. But yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, just out of curiosity, so you started the company and really in the peak of the pandemic, really like the real big peak. And you were kind of forced to do this because you couldn't really bring people into an office. I'm just curious, between you and your founders, were you believers in remote work prior to, or was it more of holy smokes, it's actually working? So could you just kind of talk about like what the three of you as founders views were prior to you all, starting the company?
Totally. Well, initially it was, the tech and product hiring phase, right? So it was essentially my team that was being built. Now we're going into revenue development. So, Naeem's doing a lot of hiring and he's adopting remote, Arash as well. But initially, when we first started, we had to build a product team. We had to build a tech team. I had a ton of experience working with both just remote talent in general throughout my
Okay.
consulting
Okay.
career. So I had,
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
I've always been a believer in it. So I kind of brought that to the table, and Naeem and Raj, signed off on it. They said, yeah, it seems like a good idea. Look, we were a fledgling startup, and we had cost concerns, and we were privately funded, bootstrapped.
Well done.
Before we got our first round, so we had to cut costs, and offices weren't something that we necessarily needed at the time. So we went with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, thank you for sharing that story because there are so many organizations out there, startups too. Like, let's speak specifically to startups. I know that there is a lot of pressure for people to return to an office and kind of appear this big corporate, but, you know, the top expense for companies, number one, I believe, is payroll. And I believe number two is office space. So it sounds like to me you all prioritized building a good product team over the appearance of we're legitimate. So kudos to you because it's not easy in the tech space, right? It's not easy to compete.
Yeah, on the hiring side specifically, but you've got to choose your priorities, right?
Yeah.
Cost number one priority in startup mode. You've got to prioritize that over, the look of having an office and having cubicles. We love the look. We have the look now. The corporate office is in Florida, and that's great. And we want folks there operationally, support, etc. But for technology, we really tied ourselves to that principle that aptitude and tech talent, engineering ability, design aptitude, it really does not have boundaries as long as you
Yep.
can correctly test for it and align on certain soft values with your hires.
Now you briefly mentioned it just now. Would you mind kind of breaking down the makeup of your company? So how many employees do you have? And then how many employees are working remote, fully remote? And then you mentioned you have an office. What's the flexibility policy for the people in that location?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I forget the latest count, but it's somewhere between 40 and 55, I think,
Okay.
something to that effect. Um,
Congrats. Congrats.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, we're still pretty product heavy because we just launched
Mm.
both of our products. Revenue development is going on. We're starting to ramp up. Naeem's starting to ramp up the revenue team now. Finally, I know he's been waiting for it for a number of years, but he's starting to ramp that up now. Now that the products are finally rolled out. So I think we've got about 25 or 26, kind of remote employees, and the rest are in the office. Within the
Okay.
office, it's fairly flexible. I think because of our success, partially on the technology side and kind of the communication stack that we've been able to create from
Right.
the product hiring and just the way we communicate now as an organization.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
it made everyone else within the corporate office a bit more comfortable with the idea of remote hiring because of the comms infrastructure that we have in place and just the way we live our daily remote office lives. It really kind of works, and we have the proper tooling in place. That being said, there are key roles of obviously, merchant support. We offer
Mm.
100% US based support in Tampa. We pick up the phone. We're fanatical about support. So that's not something that we're willing to sacrifice. We need to keep that close to the hip. Risk
Yep.
management, compliance, other key initiatives where there's a lot of kind of interactive person to person, certain high level revenue roles as well. They're all based in Tampa. And then, we pick and choose which operational and revenue roles, Naeem or Arash may want to hire remotely for. Tech is a bit of a different animal. So, for those
Okay.
product and tech focused startups, it really can be a great option if executed properly.
Yeah. 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 So what I loved about your explanation is that you're not just looking at, hey, you're at this location, so therefore you're remote or you're hybrid. It sounds like to me you're looking at the function. And I think that's
Yeah.
where a lot of people are, missing the big point here is that you have to design roles to do a certain job and a certain function. And then based on that, you can implement flexibility depending on what it is. So we've heard a ton of people talk about what's the word, like equity. Like, oh, we're bringing everybody back to the office because we want everyone, treated the same and everyone's got to feel the equal pain. Well, that's not true. Everyone doesn't get compensated the same. Right?
Right.
Like, what are we talking about? You don't get
Yeah.
paid the
Yeah.
same. If you're a CEO, you make more than the person that is not the CEO. So
Yeah.
everything is
Yeah.
not equitable. So I just love the fact that you all dug deep and really looked into the roles. Congratulations to you and your team for doing that because it's not easy to do that. So with all of the things that you've done, they're not easy and there are challenges.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the remote employee experience, what that's like for the employee, all the way from, when they hear about your company to when they retire and leave, the complete employee life cycle, what are some of the biggest challenges that you guys have had with the remote employee experience?
Yeah, yeah, challenges. Definitely a lot of challenges, especially coming out of a global pandemic.
Of course, of
There was
course.
a point in time where you had the Delta strain, and literally all of our employees were literally panicking and just leaving the city and just leaving their apartments, and I mean it was insanity. So coming out of that, we really had to
Mhm.
rewire our entire process. And there's two major buckets in terms of challenges.
Okay.
Initially, hiring and attraction, and then
Oh, explain.
secondarily, retention. So I'll focus on the first one.
Okay.
Coming out of COVID, tech was hot. Tech remains hot. It's cooled down just a tad because of the big tech kind of layoffs and things of that nature, but it's
Yep.
still
Yep.
pretty much on fire. And coming out of COVID, it was super hot.
Mm-hmm.
So, what we tried to do is we came up with a process to target and hire the top 5% of remote talent.
Okay. Okay. I'm interested. I'm
Now,
interested. Keep going.
yeah, so the folks that we were targeting, we
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to just target based on salary or bonuses. We wanted to target based on soft benefits, right? Work life balance. Because as a startup, some startups are super focused on productivity, right? But what I found as a technology manager in my
Mm-hmm.
quarter of a century of experience is that tenure matters just as much as productivity, right? In tech, if you're writing code, right? If you're exiting and you've got a lot of flux in your hiring flow, then it's going to take you that much longer to get a product completed. right? So retention, that was super important. So we decided to target and attract folks that were aligned on the soft benefits like having a tenable work-life balance and being able to work from
Mm.
home, and folks that found that of value and wanted to hang their hat with an organization for a little while and see where it took them and really build something from the ground up, right? So aligning on those values is part of where our campaign was centered. So that was
Mm.
how we solved the attraction dilemma, because it's not easy to attract the top 5% or even the top 10% of engineering talent. Secondarily, we implemented a very heavy kind of test driven, code exercise driven, design portfolio driven type of a hiring process, right?
Mm.
Right. And multi-tiered, several interview layers. That's something
Yep.
that a lot of startups do. But having something that's quantifiable with certain metrics in place, that helped a lot. We weren't getting great talent in the beginning, right? But targeting on those
Mm.
soft values, targeting the right folks that were great, that were amazing, immensely talented, high levels of aptitude, all of these things. But they aligned with us on these soft values, which was super important. That's helped keep our retention rate down. So, and creating that test driven hiring process was key.
Wow. Okay.
The third thing that we did is to tie this together. You've got to get yourself a great HRMS, right?
Okay.
Something that's able to automate your hiring processes, tie it, the offer letters need to go out, the interviews need to happen from level 1, level 2, level 3, negotiations. All these processes are difficult to manage when you've got, hundreds and thousands of emails going out, correlating
Of course.
to, 700 applicants that need to drill down to, 20 or so hires. I mean, it's not a simple undertaking for a startup, right? It can get super complicated, and managing that through
Who
some
was
sort of
who
the
was
rudimentary.
out of curiosity, who was responsible for managing that process for
So,
each hire early on?
yeah, initially it was just us. It was me. It was our chief software architect, Alexei. So we chose the HRMS that we chose was a Bamboo HR. That
Yeah,
decision has worked out great for us. We still use it today. We
yeah, that's a
liked
common one.
Bamboo because it decouples from other services like payroll or benefits. So that way we can pick and choose what we want in terms of benefits and payroll, but it
I
still gives
concur.
us the robust HRMS functionality that we needed into
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
startup. Cost, always, right? Costs are number
Hmm.
one in the startup world. So, it's cost effective, and the team's been super helpful and supportive.
Yeah, those procedures that you're talking about really can tax an organization. And kudos to you. You're a startup, so you kind of had to roll up the sleeves and help you do that. But yeah, and having a software that helps you with those, tremendous help. Tremendous help. Shout out to Bamboo. We like Bamboo as well. So those were some of your successes, man. Kudos, or some of your challenges, and then you kind of talked about like how you addressed those challenges. Let's talk about some of your biggest successes. What are some of your biggest successes within the remote employee experience?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think our retention rate shows it all. A few years in, I think we've had from the product and technology side, I think we've had 2 engineers leave the organization, and one has actually returned to us. So,
Okay.
so that was awesome. He did a short stint at another startup, yeah, and he came back. Um,
Congratulations. A comeback is a huge validation of the employee experience that you're building. If you're willing to go back to the company that you left, I mean, you have to have a huge amount of humbleness to you, but to feel comfortable to go back to the organization and say, "Hey, I made a mistake. It didn't work out. I tried it." And kudos to you and your team for welcoming the person back. Because a lot of companies would be like, "Nah, he left," and have this horrible attitude. Not a people first type of company would do that, but obviously, you could tell that you all are people first for sure. So kudos to you, man. That's really
yeah,
cool.
we're all human, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, cool, man. Retainment. One employee. So you're doing something right.
yeah,
One employee turnover. So you're doing something right.
Yeah, I think we do. I mean, we've implemented workations. So obviously we don't have that office expense minus our corporate office in Florida, right? So what we try and do this year has been a bit crazy because we're on this track to hit profitability. But last year,
Mhm.
the year before, we did workations where the whole team got together for about a week and a day, roughly twice. And we just, rented a hotel, got together in one place and, work during the day, go have dinners at night, get to meet each other. It's difficult, right? These are some of the challenges that you encounter in a remote workspace. And you've got to figure out creative ways to bridge these gaps. And workations are awesome, right? It gives an opportunity for the employees to get out there and connect with a broader team in a fun, interactive way. And, the founders, all of us, got together with the product team and allowed us to really just help train them and school them a little bit on what on fintech, both from the revenue side and the risk teams, et cetera. So that was great. Communication. Yeah.
Workations. Love the idea.
Workations.
I love
Yeah.
it. So was there a specific reason as to why you all decided that you needed to do it? First off, how many workations do you do in a year? And then secondly, what was the main cause of you all saying, hey, you know what? I think we need to do something.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, number one, right now we do about one a year. As soon as we hit profitability, we are a startup and we're getting there. We're on this path to profitability. So right now, all roads point to the black. As soon as we get there, my goal, at least on the tech side, is to do 2 per year.
Okay. Maybe,
Um,
yeah. When you say the tech side, so maybe a full company one and then, like a smaller tech side team meeting or something like
that's
that.
exactly right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then we've got
Well,
on within Tampa, we've got folks coming in, going out,
yeah.
revenue teams meeting in different places,
So
right?
they're connecting more because they're going to a location. So it's easier for those people to get together.
Totally. And they're also thinking about doing, kind of our partner conferences and things of that nature. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's awesome, man. So I got to ask you, if you're going to hop into the DeLorean and get in the time machine and go back in time, what would you tell your younger self about the remote employee experience? What piece of advice would you give to yourself?
I think overall have a process. Don't just go out there and throw ads out and think that, you're just going to hire folks remotely and just don't assume that it's going to work out, right? Have a plan of action
Yes.
and think about the process involved in taking that hire from first email all the way to offer letter signature. Get an HRMS, and outline your process within it, utilize it. And the other thing I would say is think about teaming up with a good headhunting firm, right? Especially if you're in a super competitive space like technology or financial technology, I would say it makes sense.
It makes sense. Well, I'm sure the young Kapil will be like, all right, that's pretty good. Thanks for giving me that piece of advice. I'll see you in the future. I'm sure that piece of advice would have definitely helped you earlier on. And let me tell you, what you've explained is kind of like the holy grail of hiring to pre-boarding to onboarding. And in a remote environment, you have to put, and even in a hybrid environment, if you're going to, do it correctly, you have to put so much focus on that because there are so many things in those first 30 days to 45 days that can go wrong that could really impact that employee for the rest of their career, or worse, they could just decide this isn't a good fit. So kudos to you for recognizing that later in your career and adding that process. And then also kudos for telling your younger self that. So that's cool. Well, thanks for telling us that story. Kapil, where can our listeners and viewers find you online on the interwebs?
Yeah, Payzli is at payzli.com in case you guys need payment processing. And I'm on, Instagram, Kapil, Kapil.Pershad, Pershad. So there you go.
Okay.
Thank you, Kaleem.
Awesome. What about Instagram?
Yeah, that is my Instagram handle.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. To all you viewers and listeners out there, thank you for tuning in once again. Be safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.